Today I'm reacting to your Monday Night Raw Hot Takes. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether those are good thoughts, bad thoughts, or everything in between about the world of professional wrestling. So if you'd like to be featured in the next episode of Hot Takes, make sure that you're following me over on X because I ask for your hot takes there after every episode of Raw, SmackDown, and every single WWE Premium Live event. Which means, yes, we will be doing an episode of Hot Takes immediately after Crown Jewel, so make sure that you're following me on X so that you can send in your thoughts after the show. As always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And I'm still in my Japan vacation, so that's why you're not seeing me in my regular office. It's also 11 p.m. at night, and I just finished a 10-hour trek at Tokyo Disney, so the energy levels and the sound might be a little bit lower than what you're used to, but just try to bear with me, okay? I think it's better to get this than no video, considering the whole promise of this channel is daily videos. I make sure that I get them out to you no matter what. All right, that's enough. Let's see what you guys sent in. I thought that the easiest way for Roman Reigns to get to Seth Rollins was now to take on Braun Breaker, but since he's facing Bronson Reed again, there's just no excuse. Bronson has to win. It's time to pull the trigger on Reed and set up the domination for War Games. I believe it's a must-win for Reed. I thought it was a must-win for Reed at Clash in Paris, and then he lost, but here he has another opportunity, and I double, triple, quadruple believe it's a must-win for Bronson Reed. He simply cannot lose here, or he loses a tremendous amount of credibility moving forward. I already thought that he lost a tremendous amount of credibility the first time that he lost to Roman Reigns at Clash in Paris. Luckily, he was able to get a bunch of that heat back, even if most of it was Braun Breaker. I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that Braun Breaker did like the majority of the damage during that beatdown and have just been given all the credit to Bronson Reed. But let's think not just in the short term, think about the long term here with Bronson Reed. We all know what the vision is here to do, not in a storyline perspective, in like a logical business perspective. It's to set up two future main eventers in both Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. And if Bronson Reed continues to lose these matches against these established main eventers, what's going to happen to Bronson Reed when the vision eventually splits up? I think that Braun Breaker will go on to have main event after main event after main event, but Bronson Reed, I'm not so sure, especially if he has a lineage of loss after loss to major names when we eventually get to that breakup of the vision. We can't have Bronson Reed just continue to be a stepping stone until eventually that person that continues to beat Bronson Reed loses to Braun Breaker. At some point, we need to treat Bronson Reed like he's the actual monster of the vision, like he's an actual threat, like he's an actual future main eventer. At least that's why you have him in this position, so treat him as such. I agree, especially now with the context that it's an Australian street fight, the fact that it's in Australia, the fact that he is Australian, and the fact that the Vision and Bronson Reed really need a big win going into War Games so that they can be the big, scary, evil force that all of the babyfaces get together to try and topple. Roman has never repented from his evil ways, and he's still a heel. In fact, he's as bad as Heyman. I think that there's something really interesting here, something that is worth discussing. Is Roman Reigns still a heel? I think that the easiest way to look at things is that Roman Reigns is just Roman Reigns. He's still the same person. He's still the tribal chief. He's still an egotistical, tyrannical, family-first driven maniac, whether he's a good guy targeting the bad guys or a bad guy targeting the good guys. It's still the same character, which is why the nuance of is he a heel or is he a face is a little bit more difficult than it is with the traditional WWE superstar that we are accustomed to following. Because when you look at him in the Bronson Reed feud, he's very clearly the good guy in this scenario. But when you look at him in the context of what's going on with Jey USO and the development of Jey USO and kind of steering Jey USO perhaps down a path of victory, perhaps down a path of a Hall of Fame career, perhaps down a path of WrestleMania main events, but also down a path where it separates him and his family, separates him and his brother, and it makes him an evil, tyrannical, egotistical, family-driven monster. So now that you like hear the context of him being the good guy in one feud, the bad guy in the other, now you see why it's kind of difficult to answer the question of is Roman Reigns a heel or a face. I think moving forward, I'm just going to treat Roman at face value. Roman is Roman. Jey needs to turn heel. Dark Yeet will feed generations. And it goes with my previous point of of Roman Reigns as the catalyst for one of the most lovable good guys in 2025 and in 2024, Jey Uso, potentially turning heel and being the bad guy of the WWE. When you hear that, how can you not assume that Roman Reigns is a heel? Again, there's some deep conversations to be had here. Now, when it comes to Jey Uso as a heel, listen, I'm on board with it, but if he's going to be bringing these lame, whack-ass, one-dimensional promos like he did against CM Punk and LA Knight, where they basically just chewed him out and made him look like a bum, it's not gonna work. And it's just such an interesting corner that he's in, because he's a catchphrase machine where all he has to do is say 4 letters, 1 word, yeet, and he gets a big pop. But if you want to tell a deeper narrative and a stronger story, you have to say more than that. But he's been saying literally just that in the past like 9 months, so it's kind of difficult to break out of that shell, it seems, for Jey Uso. Do I think he can play the role of a heel? Absolutely, 1,000,000%. We've seen it before, but at some point, like, if you really want people to buy into this, you can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You gotta fully dive in here and have him drop the whole yeet thing, 4 letters, 1 word. I do think that eventually the narrative of the story is that he does lean towards a dark side that gets him towards separating himself from Jimmy Uso more. But I do think that the big climax of the story, the big end point, is going to be the fact that Jey Uso comes home, that Jey Uso does continue to be the Yeet Master, that Jey and Jimmy reunite, reconcile, win the tag titles. I do think that that's ultimately where it's going. I don't think that it's going down the path of Jey Uso starting a Roman Reigns-like run like Roman did in 2020 and becoming the tribal chief and a champion for the next 1,316 days. That I don't think is going to happen. Becky Lynch was once again the MVP of the women's division. Maxine was okay-ish, but Becky made enough people believe by the end of the match that Maxine looked like $1,000,000. Give that woman a raise. Okay, we can talk about Becky Lynch, but I don't want to discredit Maxine Dupri like you kind of are doing here. It's very clear that Maxine Dupri is putting in a significant amount of work. If you just compare Maxine Dupri in this match to a match that she had maybe like 6 months ago, you can see that it's night and day. I just don't think that Becky Lynch is this absolute god that could make Maxine Dupri improve the way that she has. We got to give Maxine Dupri a lot of credit here. That being said, a lot of credit belongs to Becky Lynch as well. Not necessarily for carrying Maxine Dupri from an in-ring perspective, because I want to believe that Maxine Dupri is getting better in her own right there, but by making people give a shit about this match. A match that's already happened before, by the way. I personally loved the ending of this match, and we actually suggested this ending in a roundabout way in last week's Monday Night Raw Hot Takes. I suggested that Maxine Dupri should win, and she should win in the style of how the Hurricane won in 2003 against The Rock. It was a win that did nothing to The Rock. It didn't hurt him at all, because he was The Rock. He's the people's champion. He's at the top of the company, very similarly to where the man Becky Lynch is right now. Becky Lynch taking an L to Maxine Dupri, funnily enough, does the opposite of burying Becky Lynch. It elevated her because it puts her in an echelon with people like The Rock that can be eating these losses and just be so entertaining that you aren't concerned about wins and losses. You're just so simply entertained by the work that Becky Lynch is doing that you want to see more of her. So many people wrote in about how they love this match, about how they love the work that Becky Lynch is doing, how impressed they were by Maxine Dupri. And yeah, a lot of that does go to the work that Becky Lynch is doing by making you care about every single little thing, every single little detail that she portrays on Monday Night Raw. And this countout loss was so good, so entertaining, and I gotta give the shout out to Maxine Dupri in selling the win by rolling out of the ring, arms up, running up the ramp exactly like the Hurricane did in 2003. I think she studied that. Now, I guess the question is, what's next? I think logically is Maxine Dupri versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. And then there, you have Becky Lynch destroy Maxine Dupri. As simple as that. I don't think that we need to get crazy and wild and put the title on Maxine Dupri. We had our fun. We got to laugh. Ha ha ha. But now, you know, it's time time for Becky Lynch to be Becky Lynch and win the match and go on to face bigger fish like AJ Lee. Being from Perth, I'm biased, but seeing Reed get another match against Roman effing Reigns on a PLE just makes me so happy. It's obvious that they see big potential in him as a Vader / Mark Henry type, as he's being set up to catapult the Vision with the same momentum as Breaker. I want to argue that last little bit, the same momentum as Breaker. I'm just simply not seeing it, and I'm not going to believe it until I see it. And I think a great way for me to see it, I think a great way for you to see it, is to have Bronson Reed win here, and not just like win because the Vision gets involved, like win, like put down Roman Reigns clean. I think that that would be a wonderful finish, but I just think that WWE is so scared to have Roman Reigns lose cleanly to somebody not named friggin' Cody Rhodes at this point, because even with Seth Rollins, it took the betrayal of Paul Heyman, his wise man, for Roman to lose. I do think there's a possibility that Reed wins this, but I just don't think that it's going to be in a way that is satisfying enough for me to believe that Bronson Reed is truly like that guy, this guy that WWE is going to lean on like a Vader, like a Mark Henry, at least not yet. Because if he wins because of Braun Breaker, it'll further solidify the statement that WWE sees big things in Braun Breaker, which I think everybody agrees in. I don't think everyone is on board that WWE is on board Bronson Reed. Kairi has been given the least dialogue of the four, but has done so much to get an audience emotionally invested. Her eventual turn on Asuka could be the best moment of this entire storyline. I'm not kidding. Whether it's intentional or unintentional, I think that WWE may have accidentally or maybe on purpose made Kairi Sane into a huge star, because eventually, when she finally steps up to Asuka, when she finally decides to say enough is enough, it's going to be one of the biggest pops of the entire year. And I believe that WWE might actually deliver on this storyline, mostly because Io Sky and Rhea Ripley are involved in it. And if Rhea Ripley is involved, WWE tends to actually give a shit. Like, if this was literally just Kairi and Asuka and this was happening in a vacuum by themselves and it didn't involve bigger stars, I'd have zero faith in WWE's ability to actually execute on this. But because it involves Rhea Ripley, because it's now a high-profile storyline involving one of WWE's biggest names, I think that almost to a degree, WWE has no choice but to pay off this storyline in some sort of satisfying conclusion. And I do think that satisfying conclusion is going to be Kairi Sane stepping up to Asuka. And I think that pop is going to be so big, and the work that Kairi Sane has been doing has been so good from an in-ring perspective. That match with Io was fantastic, but also in those backstage segments with her personality evolving in front of our very eyes, maybe we're actually seeing a world where WWE might, and fingers crossed, give Kairi Sane a Women's World Championship run at some point. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. The segment between Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins tonight was by far their best segment together since they've teamed up. When Paul dropped the hype man act and told Seth the hard truth, it was very refreshing and has definitely increased my interest in the Vision as a group. I agree fully with this sentiment. I feel to a degree like the Paul Heyman that we have had with Seth Rollins has been neutered, has been like almost a caricature of himself, not the real Paul Heyman that would tell Roman Reigns hard truths, that would tell Solo Sikoa hard truths that landed him through a table. Because with Seth Rollins, it's been all smiles. It's been, like I said, almost like over-the-top jolliness with Paul Heyman that I never really bought into. So hearing Paul Heyman finally, like you said, drop the hype man act and tell Seth Rollins how it is, that if you lose this, you will lose the belief and the trust in Bronson Reed, in Braun Breaker, that you are the guy to lead this company, to be the visionary of this company, and you will have me questioning whether I should have continued to go with Roman Reigns, was such a powerful segment on Monday Night Raw. And believe it or not, I actually am glad that this segment happened backstage as opposed to a promo in the middle of the ring, because it happening backstage made this feel like a more raw and organic conversation, and more believable and more full of emotions as well. This is exactly what Raw desperately needed: more story development through backstage backstage segments, compelling scenes in the ring, better promos, etc. So I basically sped run watched this episode of Monday Night Raw, and I'm so pleasantly surprised with how good this episode was, to the point that I'm kind of bummed that I missed out on live streaming it with my community, because it was such a good episode from head to toe. The matches, the backstage segments, the promos, they were all just so good. And I think I can pinpoint one thing in particular that WWE did better in this episode than they do in many of the episodes of Monday Night Raw, which is they allowed the guys to just be the guys on the mic. Not just, hey, I talk to the camera, and then in a later segment, you talk to the camera, and then in a later segment, I talk to the camera. They just sent out CM Punk, LA Knight, Jey Uso. Hey, let's go out there and let's see what kind of fireworks we can have. And my goodness, it was dynamite, because the stuff with CM Punk and LA Knight just felt so good. And even though the Jey Uso, to me, in terms of his promo, fell flat, it was still exciting to see these three guys talking at one another as opposed to talking around each other. It was also nice to not have the Vision main eventing Monday Night Raw. That was nice too. But I agree. I think from head to toe, this episode of Monday Night Raw was a really, really strong, fully balanced episode with great stuff from both the men's, the women's, the mid-card, the tag teams. It was good. Was this not the exact same opening and promo on Raw before Clash in Paris? Why are we repeating feuds word for word again, especially when Roman beat Bronson cleanly? Yeah, they're kind of trying to retcon what happened at Clash in Paris. They're trying to make it seem like Bronson Reed was this big, scary, bad guy that absolutely demolished and destroyed Roman Reigns, when, yeah, they kind of forgot to mention the fact that Roman beat him clean, and again, the majority of the damage was done by Braun Breaker, not Bronson Reed. But they're trying to put that part under the rug, because they want to make you believe, at the very least for Crown Jewel in Australia, because we conveniently have an Australian big scary guy to go up against Roman Reigns, that he was the one that did everything. That's why I'm not buying into WWE seeing Bronson Reed as a main eventer until they actually show me something concrete here, because right now what I'm seeing is a heck of a whole lot of retconning. Listen, I'm here for the Jey story with Roman and Jimmy. It's captivating, but Jey got completely outclassed and shown up by Punk and LA Knight during their segment. They both looked as dumbfounded as I did after Jey muttered a few basic words and stumbled out a yeet. He needs to do better. Listen, the storyline is captivating. It's captivating because we're seeing the evolution of Jey Uso, this happy-go-loving, fun guy that loves to dance with the crowd, that has always been a good guy in the books of all the baby faces on Monday Night Raw, and we're seeing him evolve into something darker, something more sinister. And here's the thing, Jey, out of everyone that's involved in the storyline, in my opinion, is doing the worst job at demonstrating that growth. Somehow, Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso are growing better in this storyline and evolving more than Jey Uso is, when Jey is literally the center focal point of this evolution as a character. And I want to hit on the point that you hit here, how he just stumbled through a few words and then just muttered four letters, one word, yeet. It's like he has this crutch, right? Like, break in case of emergencies, in case I forget my lines, in case I have a shitty promo and I'm getting clowned by LA Knight and CM Punk, so I'll just say yeet, and boom, it gets a big pop from everybody. But that's just not going to work in the long run if you really want people to buy into Jey Uso being a heel and being the tribal chief. He's got to be able to put together a paragraph's worth of words in a promo without relying on yeet. And he's going to get owned. He's going to get exposed against guys that are fantastic on the microphone, like friggin' LA Knight and CM Punk. And if it gets to a brother versus brother scenario, Jimmy is going to absolutely dunk on his ass. So ultimately, this was a long-winded way of saying, yes, I agree with you. He needs to do better. I don't know why I hype myself up when someone starts describing a quote sick and quote sadistic new match type when it's just another insert local city street fight. Yeah, that was weird, right? Okay, cool. Australian street fight, that's fine. We've been getting these types of city name and country name monikers for street fights over the past year. Like, I'm not mad about that. Australian street fight, great. That's fine. Donnybrook fight, whatever, great. Riyadh City street fight, fantastic. All of that is fine. But I did find it weird that Paul Heyman was talking about this like unique match that's so unique to Bronson Reed, so unique week that it's the reason why he got signed to the WWE, and it ended up just being an Australian street fight. Okay, yeah, my ass. This show feels like an episode of SmackDown from 2021 to 2024 with all the OG Bloodline drama throughout the show. I'm not a Bloodline fan, but I have to admit that it made the show significantly more interesting. My only complaint is that nothing happened after the main event. I did kind of get these vibes from this episode of Monday Night Raw, and it goes back to what I was saying last week when Roman Reigns returned to the WWE for the 83rd time this year, is that WWE, Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, whatever show he's on, is just better when Roman Reigns is there. It's better when they use Roman Reigns throughout the entire show, and it isn't just Roman Reigns returning, Superman punch, beatdown, PLE match, and then disappears. When they can actually use Roman Reigns in narratives and storytelling and interweave him in backstage segments, promos, whatever it might be, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, freaking Evolve will be better if Roman Reigns is there and is being used. They all look like heels to me. I think that this is a really, really strong point and fascinating as well, because you're right. At one point or another in this night, Jey, CM Punk, and LA Knight all did heelish things to one another. And I think that's such a great dynamic that all three of these guys are crowd favorites, baby faces, but to one another, they're the scourge of the earth. They're the worst thing that could possibly happen to humanity, which is why we're probably just going to go down the classic path of, will they be able to coexist at War Games? Eventually, that's the tale that's going to be told. These three guys are going to have to put aside their differences to band together to take out the Vision. At least I'm assuming that's where things are going to go. But you're right. In an episode where we're talking about Jey Uso being a heel, is Roman Reigns a heel? I think at this point, heel is in the eye of the beholder, and whoever is doing the thing that might be considered a heel thing and who they're doing it to. I hope that they pay off the storyline with Lyra and Bayley finally next week. After the multiple matches with the Judgment Day, we have to see what the end goal is. I agree. I think that this has gone on long enough for us to continue to have these questions. I think we need to have a little bit more clarity as to where the storyline is going. We can't just continue to run Lyra versus Roxanne Perez for the 80th time this year. We need to figure out where the storyline is going. Is it going to be a feud between Lyra and Bayley, or are they going to team up? With the way that things ended up going in this episode of Monday Night Raw, I'm starting to lean towards them creating a tag team as opposed to feuding with one another. But then again, that could change on a whim, much like Bayley's character. Finn should turn against Dom and cost him the title. They have been dragging this storyline for way too long. Yeah, the Finn storyline with Dominic Mysterio seems to be one of these never-ending sagas that I'm concerned isn't actually going to ever have a satisfying enough payoff for how long it's been going on. I think that whenever it does happen, unfortunately, I think it's going to some degree, maybe not the Finn Balor fans, it's going to fall a little bit flat because of how damn long this thing took. But I don't think it happens here. I don't think that it happens in the middle of the fall. If anything, I could see it maybe happening on the road to WrestleMania. Maybe it's Dom versus Finn Balor at WrestleMania. Listen, that's a big enough match to be at WrestleMania, and if they do the turn in a way where it actually like matters and is impactful, it absolutely could be at WrestleMania. But if they were to do this in October at an 8 a.m. Monday Night Raw for the majority of viewers in the United States, I just don't think that it's going to have the legs that it ought to. Jey does not need to be in the world title picture again. Him and Jimmy should beat the Judgment Day for the tag title. Listen, at this point, I'll take anybody beating the Judgment Day for the tag titles. I really thought that the Bronze would be tag champs by now, but here we are. They still are holding the tag team titles and the entire tag team division hostage, it seems. But here's the thing, the current storyline that we're in, you can't really have the Usos go for the tag titles. Otherwise, everything that we've had built up and developed with Roman Reigns there is all for naught. We need Jey Uso to pursue this selfish version of himself at the very least for the next several months. Like I said, the end payoff of the storyline could still be the Usos reuniting and winning the tag titles, but that can't happen anytime soon. We have to be talking about months in the future because we need to see the growth and development of this storyline before we can have the ending, the happy reunion of the two. Just go ahead and name Becky Lynch WWE Superstar of the Year. Listen, at this point, I think there's a really strong case. I think it's between her and Io Sky at the moment. I don't think that there's any male superstar that even comes close to the work that either of those two have been putting in. Io and Becky Lynch are really, to me, the only two in the conversation. It could have been Kevin Owens if it wasn't for the injury. I'm not ready to give it to Becky Lynch just yet because Io Sky is right there as well. But I think it's going to be a strong conversation between those two at the end of the year. All right, folks, thank you so very much for submitting in your hot takes. Again, sorry for the lower volume and keeping the energy levels low. I don't want to get kicked out of the hotel, but that's it. I'm done. Goodbye. Get out of here.